Hey everybody, Frank DeLeo in my garage today. Talking about my book, CPR for the Heart. The second most difficult thing that happens as a warning sign of a hard heart is psychological distortions, or things that cause us pain and suffering. And I want to talk about that today and show you there's a way forward. For example, if what others feel or experience is perceived as truth, regardless of facts, it may not necessarily be associated with reality. I call that perception's reality. Or when this occurs, there could be a disconnect in our ability to control our environment. And that's scary because it causes us suffering and pain and confusion, and sometimes takes us out of control of our environment. These control factors lead to the position of creating the psychological need for creativity in getting out of a circumstance, creating a distortion reflecting how we see ourselves in light of what we see and experience, sometimes God. In addition, the heart now incorporates the functions of cognition, affectivity, and volition as a means of finding a way around that distortion. All three function in an interconnected way, whether good or bad. For example, an individual thinks, that's cognition, that God is angry or there is no God, which then leads them to feelings of anxiety, fear, madness, which is affectivity. And that anger then leads to a hard heart, which then leads to rejecting God completely, leaving them no faith. That's a choice, that's volition. When Jesus tells us in Mark 3:25 that a house divided cannot stand, this is what it looks like. In our own mind, when we get this kind of distortion, we lose sight of it. Our hearts get hardened, and the components of cognitivity, affectivity, and volition are not balanced. And then it brings thoughts and feelings and choices that work in an illogical manner. Harry Frankfurt suggests that the essence of a person isn't in him or her, it can be found in the structure of the will within that individual. The premise then is that if a man takes or a woman takes his or her wants and desires and associates them with the will that they want, this leads them to action. That's volition. What man desires is freedom. So by removing any obstacles, any unpleasantries or feelings or emotions, man's solution is then to create a defense mechanism that avoids any kind of psychological problem. And that relieves the emotions and the conflict of the anxiety. And from time to time, we've all experienced this kind of situation. We try to avoid pain and suffering. We all do it. The same is true for the hardness of the heart. Consider an event or circumstance that brings about hard heart, a heartache, a job loss, a broken relationship, bullying. These result in doubt and fear and brokenness and keeps us from going forward. We become hardened toward that individual or situation. We avoid them if all possibility. When people harden their heart, it is not usually because, listen to this, because they hate God. In that situation, they're attempting to avoid any pain and suffering. And so they think by doing so, they're avoiding it. However, what many fail to realize is that pain that causes this movement away from God or from others, furthermore, that pain not adequately managed turns inward and becomes rotten within us and becomes a defense mechanism to everything. Soon we build walls, brick walls, as a defense mechanism. Together, we build a deception that says, if I don't try, I won't feel any pain or sorrows. One of the ways to overcome the psychological gymnastic is by having others around us that have a good mindset and are encouraging and loving with one another, and that so we don't fall prey to the sins that so easily ensnare us of dysfunctionality and of psychological gymnastics. So now I want to ask you to check out this book, CPR for the Heart. See how this solves the problem for most of us. And I pray you'll buy it right here at frankjdeleo.com. Thank you for joining me. God bless you.